Thanks for watching another buyer's review. Today we got a special car that I wanted to review. Probably the most beautiful 90s coupe to come out of Europe. This car was assembled from various parts like the Mark III Golf and the Passat from the time. But that doesn't make it an internal Volkswagen project. As a matter of fact, this was quite a pricey car back in the day. Most desirable are the ones with the VR6 engines. This car is right on the edge between sportiness and comfort. The VR6 engine is one of the best engines Volkswagen ever built. VR6 is a 6-cylinder, but the angle of the cylinders make this engine quite compact, so it was easy to fit in the Corrado or the Mark III Golf, for instance. I have a very fond memory of my aunt owning a VR6 in the 90s. I remember the noise of the engine and how quick it was. Eventually she sold the car, since people tried to steal the car a few times. Funny detail is that the Corrado was only made if you ordered one from the factory. 97,521 cars were built. Most cars were built in Germany, but the car was also available in the United States and Canada. Best engines would be the G60 and the VR6 engines. Both engines have their own characteristics, which we'll go into a little bit later. What we try to figure out today is to see if this car is still a good purchase 26 years after it went out of production. Volkswagen had 3 inline 4-cylinder engines for this car, the 2-liter, the 1.8 16-valve and the 1.8 G60. There was also the VR6, which closely resembles a V6 engine, but the angles of the cylinder bank make this engine more compact than the traditional V6. This way the engine could be fitted in the Corrado, and also the Mark III Golf at the time. Only distinction between the Golf and the Corrado was that the Golf had the 2.8 VR6 and the Corrado had the 2.9 VR6. On the VW forums, people argue about what is the best engine for this car. Some claim that the G60 was lighter in the nose, so this made this car handle better. The G60 had a turbocharger and put out 160 horsepower. The VR6 was more heavy in the nose, so that made the VR6 more of a high-speed cruiser. When you rev the VR6 engine, you get rewarded by one of the best sounding engines from VW. The VR6 put out 190 horsepower. Now on to some of the things that you should know. There are reports that the VR6 with high mileage consumes quite some oil. Do an engine revision or buy a donor car. The G charger on the 1.8 G60 is a weak point. This charger needs regular maintenance. Cars that have a doubtful past should be avoided, or you should do a proper car inspection by a VW specialist. Also, if you want to do the maintenance on this car yourself, it's best to go for the G60. The VR6 engine leaves you almost no room in the engine bay to inspect and repair the engine. That being said, with normal maintenance these engines are quite bulletproof. Again, oil consumption is something that you should check regularly, now that they are more than 30 years old. Even my 1.4 4-cylinder engine in the Polo used quite some oil. For the VR6 specifically, it's important to check the state of the engine chain. Driving hard is no problem, as long as you give the engine time to warm up. All in all, these engines are quite reliable, but without proper maintenance you set yourself up for a potential headache. Also, the parts for the engine are not easily available anymore. My personal opinion, I still really like the look of these cars. Yes, you can tell they are old, but they have the classic Volkswagen design and are from the era that gives us good Volkswagens. I would not daily drive a car like this. Prices range from very cheap to quite expensive. Lots of these cars were in the hands of younger drivers in the early 2000s who modded their cars. Original cars are obviously preferred and these will be more expensive. There is still quite a fan base out there for the Corrado. And if you're lucky you can buy a well-kept example from an enthusiast. Last but not least, these cars can rust. All visual parts like doors, panels and the chassis can rust. Cars with a detailed set of maintenance are preferred, of course. Also look for the type of cars where more money was spent on the maintenance of the car instead of spending money on the stereo. The 1.8 liter from the Volkswagen Group is quite bulletproof, and it might be more fun to drive since these G60s are lighter and more fun in the corners. The VR6 is made for long motorway journeys. Hope this buyer's review was useful. If so, subscribe to my channel to stay updated with the latest car buying reviews.